The School of Hard Knocks 22 took place at the Century Casino in Calgary. Professional and amateur fighters from across Canada battled it out in the Hard Knocks cage.
To the School of Hard Knocks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this School of Hard Knocks fight is a women's amateur bout in the 125-pound division and is brought to you by Finishing Touches Concrete. And now, let's meet the fighters. He's fighting out of Calgary. Please welcome Kayla Patton.
Next one down to the cage, Kayla Matten fighting in our women's division at the 125-pound weight class. Of course, Kayla coming in well under that weight class at just 113.5 pounds. But as a lot of people are finding out in the amateur ranks of MMA, and especially in the women's amateur rank of MMA, in order to get a fight, you need to be prepared to take a fight despite a weight advantage for your opponent. And that's what Kayla Matten has done here today, coming in almost 12 pounds under the required, or not necessarily the required weight class, but the weight cutoff for this fight. And the 26-year-old stands 5'3", and she comes to us out of MMA University here in Calgary, making her amateur debut tonight against Shalur Jones. Now, we did see Shalur Jones earlier at Hard Knocks 14, and Kayla said she watched that fight and said that Shalur's chin obviously can take a beating because, as we saw in Shalur's fight, she just kept coming forward. She did not stop. But she said that there are other aspects of MMA that are going to be able to help her stop Shalur in her tracks tonight and get her amateur career, Kayla's that is, off to a positive start and off to a winning start. She told me that she got into MMA because she decided one day at the gym she was working out, taking another class. She looked across the gym. They were doing some MMA training over there and figured, it's time to get over there and give that a shot. 10 months later, stepping into the cage for the very first time, trying to get an amateur victory here over Shalur Jones at Hard Knocks 22. Coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, the hometown of Kayla Matten and Shalur Jones as well. Should be a very exciting fight here between these two women.
And her opponent, fighting out of Calgary, Shalur Jones.
Now we see Shalur Jones, who also came in under the weight limit at 120 pounds. We saw her first fight here in the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship at Hard Knocks 14. She really took a beating from Robin Combs. There's no way to sugarcoat that. She really just kept coming forward. Combs picked her apart for 3 rounds with takedowns, as well as with jabs and straights and hooks. I mean, really, Shalur Jones did not look ready to step in the cage at Hard Knocks 14. However, she has now joined a gym. She's joined Dynamic MMA. And if there's one thing we know about fighters from Dynamic MMA here in Calgary, is that they come into the cage well prepared to fight, that their coaches will not let them into the cage unless they think that they can actually compete, which is something that really, when looking at Shalur Jones' first fight, she was not able to do. She came forward, she's got heart for days, She's got a chin that can take a beating, but at the end of the day, there was no real skill shown on the form of Shalur Jones. And now this former ballerina is stepping into the cage under the coaching tutelage of the guys over at Dynamic MMA. She feels ready to get in and get that first win of her amateur career. Told me yesterday at the weigh-ins that technique will allow her to prevent her from taking a beating like she did last time. Said that getting with a gym allowed her to improve by leaps and bounds, but still says there's no game plan. She's gonna go where the fight goes, look for openings and take them as they come, and really try and get in there and show off all the skills that she's learned over the last couple months at Dynamic. Of course, we've seen a lot of Dynamic fighters coming through the Hard Knocks ranks, and again, very well-prepared fighters, as Shalur Jones is hoping to demonstrate that she can be. We know she has heart, we know she has a chin. Now we'll see if she's been able to put together the skill set to compete at the MMA level. Now with the official introductions, we'll go inside the cage to Jay Denance.
And now, the official Hard Knocks fighter introductions. In the Great Pig Apparel blue corner, it's her amateur debut. She's 26 years old and stands 5 feet 3 inches tall. She weighed in at 113 1/2 pounds, fighting out of MMA University from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Kayla Madden. And in the Two Amigos moving and storage red corner, she's 0-1 as an amateur. She's 28 years old and stands 5 feet 4 inches tall. She weighed in at 119 pounds, fighting out of Dynamic MMA from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Shalur the Chainsaw Jones. This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mr. Len Coivisto.
Black trunks for Jones coming out of the red corner. Out of the blue corner in the blue trunks is Kayla Madden, as we get set for our third fight of the night, and coming forward with a quick right hand and then eating one was Shalur Jones.
Yeah, Shalur Jones got a smile on her face though, so I don't know if she's, I'm pretty sure it's a smile. Every time she gets hit, she smiles more. I knew she was crazy.
Well, she did. She said it was the best 9 minutes of her life despite the beating she took. And she is eating a couple punches here. You can hear her coaches asking her to take the shot and try and work the takedown. And on the other side of the cage, we've got Kayla Madden throwing punches, although she's eaten a couple as well. And you can see the takedown attempt now coming from Shalur Jones, taking a little bit of punishment and trying to defend it with trying for the guillotine choke, but not succeeding, was Kayla Madden.
Yeah, here's the thing that a lot of people need to realize. It's set up that every time somebody tries to take you down, that you try and guillotine choke them. And that's not the way it needs to be. When you take it down, you need to defend. Defend first. You need to whizzer and get your legs back when someone attacks your legs. But everybody's going to be guillotine choke, and that's not what needs to happen. You end up getting taken down, and 99 times out of 100, you don't end in a good position.
Knees coming now from Shalur Jones on top as she continues to work. A minute and a half left in round number one, trying to push Kayla Madden's arm across her own neck. Madden is secure, gets out of that, but again, a lot of work from on top, elbows and knees coming from Shalur Jones to Kayla Madden.
And keeping busy and making an impression for the judges. You see a judge is right there outside of the cage staring down at the action, and Shalur Jones staying busy on top. We have only got a minute left. Again, only 3-minute rounds in the amateur go. So as we look at our featurefights.ca clock there, we can see that it takes a very short time to be able to make an impression to the judges.
And again, more strikes coming from everywhere to everywhere from Shalur Jones. Kayla Matten trying to create some space underneath, but has been unable to do so thus far. Although it looks like she may get into a half guard here. Tried to get around. And Shalur Jones, very nice to dogfight back into side control and continue to do damage from there with just 25 seconds remaining in round number 1. This is a very much improved Shalur Jones.
Yeah, and the one thing that that she's doing is she's throwing all of her effort into these elbows and these punches. Now my concern is that because you're not going to be able to end the fight with elbows to the leg, or you at least hope that they're not able to end the fight that way, you end up wasting a lot of energy putting that much in there. You really only need to stay busy, but she did a great job.
Jones in the black trunks out of the red corner, blue trunks for Matten out of the blue corner as we get set for round number 2 here in our 3rd fight of the night at the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship number 22, live from the Century Casino in Calgary, Alberta, and big punches being thrown now by Matten, but again, Jones just keeps coming forward.
Yeah, and because she's not afraid of these punches, she's able to come in from a lot closer up to get these takedowns, and securing another good takedown, but again to the guillotine choke, and trying to work it is Kayla Matten from MMA University, but slipping out is Shalur Jones, and now she's on top in a dominant position.
Jones works her way towards side control, but Matten doing a nice job of getting the guard back on. Matten temporarily with wrist control down low, but Jones does break free for a couple more shots to the ribs and drags her opponent over to the cage.
And putting that head up against the cage to prevent the ability to wall walk, it also gives you so that you can push into your opponent, and your opponent now can't go anywhere. So when you hit your opponent, there's no space. They just go up against that cage, makes your striking even, especially more dynamic. Shalur Jones needs to be careful here because trying to put over the foot is Kayla Matten. And with the female division, more so than the men, females have natural flexibility. So those positions where the men are able to not necessarily do things like going into to mission control and using a rubber guard, that's something that's very easy for female fighters. And you see the advanced flexibility. So it's always dangerous in a submission game because sometimes those limbs can come out of nowhere and able to get you in positions that you don't want to be in.
Jones continuing to work from the top as Kayla Matten tries to find her way out, but just a minute left. And now again, the punch is going to come to the midsection and torso of Matten. Again, no strikes to the head of a downed opponent. Trying to flip out of the guard, even though she was postured up, does end up now working towards side control. And you'll see the jiu-jitsu fighters here in the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship working for side control rather than the mount once they've had a couple fights, because they realize you're able to do more from side control in a submission base than you're able to do from the mount.
Well, and it's also a striking base because when you're in the mount, pretty much the only thing you can do is an armbar. Other than that, any other technique you do, you end up ending up too high, and it's a dangerous position for you to lose it. Inside control, there's so much more to do, and you can strike there, you can elbow, and you don't have to worry about the head. You end up targeting that far side midsection instead of the head. Trying for an armbar here, and now ending up on top and trying for a choke with the shin there.
Shalur Jones doing a good job of staying on top. A nice sprawl there to stay on top and continuing to throw punches from the top and work from the top. A very solid performance here in round number 2. So Jones and Matten coming out. Matten in the blue trunks, Jones in the black trunks. Trying a jumping Superman punch there. And a big hand coming, and a smile on the face of Shalur Jones after taking that punch. She will take those punches all day, it seems, if that means she can keep coming forward. And Kayla Matten throwing some big right hands, and one of them connecting early, but again, finds herself back up against the cage. And once they've gotten this close, it's been Shalur Jones's fight.
Well, and Shalur Jones does have a bit of a weight advantage when it comes to, when you talk about the difference between heavyweights and 265 as compared to, 258, that's not a big difference, 7 pounds. But when you're 110 pounds and you're 7 pounds heavier than your opponent, that's a big difference. You're looking at percentage points that aren't in the decimals, and you can see when they're side by side that Shalur Jones is the much bigger fighter.
Jones now working the side control again, trying to isolate an arm, maybe looking for a submission attempt. Good defense on the bottom from Kayla Mattin, but not enough defense to keep her moving as she almost finds herself now in a bit of a crucifix position. Again, not a big advantage to Shalur Jones to have her in a crucifix, but for strikes to the body. But again, those can add up over the course of the fight, and it certainly looks good in the eyes of the judges when you're continually landing strikes to undefended parts of the body.
Absolutely, as they continue to go forward here. Ground dominance here by Shalur Jones, and I don't think at this point Kayla Mattin has an answer to be able to get off of her back at this point. So something to go to the gym and work for, maybe work some sweeps and being able to get on top. Up high now is Shalur Jones, and you're going to look to her trying to isolate an arm and possibly go for a armbar here.
Well, knowing that the time she spent in the gym, Jones is probably looking for a finish here so that she can get that finish. But again, with 45 seconds left in round number 3, Kayla Mattin really, at this point, lying down and not doing much in the way of, I'm not going to say she's not intelligently defending, but she's certainly not making any moves to advance her position and change her fate here on the bottom of this fight.
Yeah, and credit to Shalur Jones here for being able to be in such good control. We're down to our last couple seconds in the fight, and there's the 10-second clock. And it looks like Shalur Jones, again, barring any odd decisions here, should take the victory in this one, as she controlled all 3 rounds, continuing to land elbows and being busy throughout the rest of the fight.
A very impressive fight from Shalur Jones.
Gentlemen, we have the official results. Brought to you by Finishing Touches Concrete. The winner by unanimous decision in the red corner, Shalur Jones!
So Shalur Jones evens up her record at 1-1. She's going to be in the center with Ryan.
Center of the cage. Now, I saw you fight a little while ago, and if I didn't know it was you, I wouldn't have known it was you. The improvements you made from your last fight are very significant.
Working with dynamics made all the difference. Great. Getting the cardio up and getting the technique up. These awesome guys that toss around in the gym. They've been fantastic.
Now, the last time we saw you, it was walking forward and taking punches for 3 rounds. You worked the takedowns today, something you've been working on in the gym?
Oh yeah. Being a bit of a masochist, I still kind of want walking the punches, but hey.
Willing to take a punch and go forward. I'm sure you got coaches and sponsors to thank.
Yep, Devin, RJ, Vince, Grego here, Riley, my husband Keith, Piggy's Burgers, Calgary Meats and Jelly. I've been absolutely awesome sponsors. We got all of them.
Oh, she got a view of her sponsors there. One more time for your winner, ladies and gentlemen, Shalur Jones.
To find out more about Hard Knocks Fighting and upcoming Hard Knocks events, please visit hardknocksfighting.com.
This School of Hard Knocks fight is an amateur bout in the 205-pound division and is brought to you by Build 360. And now, let's meet the fighters. Fighting out of Calgary, Bryce Berry.
Coming down to the cage next, Bryce Berry coming to us, the independent fighter out of Calgary, Alberta in the 205-pound weight class. 0-1 as an amateur. We did see him fight for us here in the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship before, and he went toe-to-toe with his opponent. He got in and fired shots, but came out on the losing end of that fight that night, and he'll try and get on the winning side of things tonight against Cody Clark, coming to us out of Dynamic MMA. Bryce told us he trains with other friends and other independents, doesn't really like getting to a gym system, and feels like he needs to get in and really show what he can do. And he said to me he wants to work on getting punched in the face less. Said he feels very confident in his ground game, wants to stand up if he can, will not look for the takedown, but is hoping that Cody Clark tries to take him down to the ground. A very interesting kind of dynamic there. Says he doesn't want to go to the ground, but he hopes his opponent takes him to the ground, so probably not going to be firing for a takedown. But we know Bryce Berry can take a punch, as he took several in his last fight and got through into the third round. Said he ran out of gas in the third round and felt he really needed to work on his cardio for this fight, and feels as though he's done so in preparing for Cody Clark. Again, just 23 years old, Bryce Berry is, and a very heavy right hand, and feels like he can take that into the cage and really work towards getting a knockout. But again, Bryce Berry 0-1 so far on his amateur career.
And his opponent, fighting out of Calgary, Cody Clark.
Now we meet Cody Clark, who's coming down to the cage for the very first time. 0-0 as an amateur. 200 pounds was what Cody weighed in at, standing 6'3", just 22 years old, and has been training MMA for just 5 months. Now, he has spent 3 years fighting Muay Thai. Never got into a cage or a ring to fight Muay Thai, but has been training Muay Thai for the last 3 years, so obviously likes to strike, but knows that Bryce can strike as well. Said he watched Bryce's last fight and feels like he does have that heavy right hand, and he needs to keep his range and work on technical striking and get in and kind of hit and move to stay away from the right hand of Bryce Berry. Also, Cody, of course, talking about his game plan. We mentioned that Bryce wants to be taken down, but doesn't want to get the takedown. On the other side of the cage, Cody Clark saying doesn't really plan to go to the ground because striking is his background. He figures that that's probably the best way for him to win this fight tonight. Although he tells me he can adapt if he needs to. He can get in the cage, and again, we saw what Shalur Jones was able to do in the last fight. We know what the boys from Dynamic are able to do on the ground, and we'll see whether or not Cody Clark can do that here tonight. Now for the official introductions, we'll go to Jaden Nance in the center of the cage.
The official Hard Knocks Fighter introductions. In the Great Pig Apparel blue corner, he's 0-1 as an amateur. He's 23 years old and stands 6 feet 2 inches tall. He weighed in at 203 pounds, fighting as an independent from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks Fighter Bryce the Mad
After his last fight, both of his grandparents died within like 6 days.
And in the Two Amigos Moving and Storage red corner, it's his amateur debut. He's 22 years old and stands 6 feet 3 inches tall. He weighed in at 200 pounds, fighting out of Dynamic MMA from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks Fighter, Cody Lumberjack Clark! This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mr. Brian Beauchamp.
Brian Beauchamp, our referee, as the Mad Viking gets ready to take on the Lumberjack in what will likely be the biggest fight of the night, as both these guys are looking for a knockout. and it'll be interesting to see which one of them comes out throwing hardest.
Yeah, good check of a leg kick there by Bryce Berry, and a nice leg kick landed by Cody Clark right on the top of the knee. Great spot. There's a teak there, was able to knock down Bryce Berry as Bryce Berry continues to come forward.
Yeah, Berry was throwing a kick of his own when he ate the one kick, the front kick. And again, with the Muay Thai background, I'm sure you can expect to see kicks, but big punches being thrown to the body and head of Cody Clark. But he's standing in there. But Bryce Berry is landing some huge strikes up against the cage. Cody Clark in trouble. He clinches up and finds himself taken down to the ground. And Bryce Berry now working his way to the full mount.
Excellent takedown by Bryce Berry. He felt the push by Cody Clark and took him to the ground. This is a smart strategy by Bryce Berry. He did expend a lot of energy with those shots. They were big shots. Take him to the ground, take your time, and get some energy there. Trying for an attempt on an armbar there. Technique wasn't as good as he ended up being, and now Cody Clark on top.
Berry finding himself on the bottom after that armbar attempt, and some elbows coming to the rib cage of Bryce Berry. And we'll see whether or not he can get out of this position, holding his opponent in side control with his knee, keeping him nice and close, holding the head down, doing a good job of jiu-jitsu defense so far. But again, anytime you're on the bottom, it's a bad look in the eyes of the judges.
Yeah, being on the bottom again, we're talking about the short amount of time, 1 minute, 20 seconds remaining on our featurefights.ca clock. And, you know, that was a good start to the round by Bryce Berry. Landed some big shots. It's going to make an impression. But being on the bottom like this is not going to make those judges. It's going to give them a decision to make, as opposed to making an easy decision, which would have been to stay on top the whole time.
More punches coming now from Cody Clark on top of Bryce Berry. We'll see whether or not he's able to work for a submission, but these two guys are working the ground game. And again, more strikes to the body here from Clark. Big elbows coming down to the ribcage, and Bryce Berry doesn't like that. He tries to find his way up, but ends up, well, what looked like a potential guillotine, but good wrist control from Berry, holding it in, and now knees to the ribcage and knees to the thighs of the Mad Viking from the Lumberjack. Probably trying to chop down the Vikings' potential, as we've got just 20 seconds left here in round number one.
Did you save that one for a while? Have you been saving that?
No, it just comes naturally. Big punches now to the side of Bryce Berry, big elbows coming from Cody Clark. Less than 10 seconds left here in round number one, as Bryce Berry maybe made a mistake, Jeremy, in going for the armbar, as he may have cost himself that round. Over about 2 minutes on top for Cody Clark, landing a bunch of strikes and a bunch of damage. Bryce Berry may have made a mistake in trying for the armbar.
Yeah, it's important that you have to be able to make sure that your technique is solid. If you're not sure 100%, and it's going to put you in a position where you might end up on the bottom, we said this before with guillotine chokes, and doing a guillotine choke from standing position. If you not sure you're going to get it, then don't try it. You don't want to end up in that bottom position. We see some of the strikes that happen here. Good leg kick by Cody Clark.
It'll be the front kick here from Cody Clark. We'll see just momentarily as he'll take Bryce Berry down. But I do think Berry got the better of the striking between the two, and could look to use that to his advantage in round number two and keep the fight on his feet. Maybe have made a mistake in trying to take the fight to the ground.
And there's two schools of thought when it comes to striking as well. If you look at the very first time that Shogun fight Lyoto Machida, they said that Machida was doing more to try and end the fight, and Shogun was just landing leg kicks. Now, Bryce Berry did a lot to try and end this fight. So do judges say who had more of a chance to end the fight, or who controlled the round better? These are great shots that are landing here as we look at the replay. Big shots, but again, you look at the cardio of Bryce Berry. He says he's ready to go for 9 minutes, but with his hands on his hips, he looks very tired.
Cody Clark and Bryce Berry meet at the center of the cage. Black and camo for Cody Clark, black and red with the warrior trim from Bryce Berry. And again, that one hand low and the nose bleeding from Berry. That's a familiar sight to anyone watching the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship.
Yeah, Bryce Berry leads with his head, which is something that he might want to correct in his fight stance, because he has to put his hands that much more forward, and they're not forward all the way. So you're just leaving it close for your opponent. In on the single leg now is Cody Clark. He pushes it up against the cage, switches to a double. Nice takedown there.
And again on top and inside control, where he was very effective in round number 1, dropping elbows to Bryce Berry right to that liver area. That cannot feel good, and Berry scrambling to get out, but all he's done is offer up the other side of his midsection to more Cody Clark elbows.
Yeah, they say that body shots don't end fights. Tell that to people who've been punched in the liver. It is painful. It shuts your body down. Prime example, you look at Aaron Armstrong, who was a very dominant lightweight fighter in the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship for the first couple of events. And when he fought and got one punched in the liver, and that was it. And they are going to end this fight, so it must have been a tap out by Bryce Berry. So our first finish of the night due to strikes to the liver. And the Mad Viking Bryce Berry does not tap easily. So obviously those were some massive shots by Cody Clark.
And Berry not arguing the decision, not doing much in the way of defense down low, as Cody Clark gives his coach a bit of a taste of his guard, but you can just see more and more strikes landing here, and we'll see whether or not Bryce actually tapped or whether or not the referee stepped in. But Bryce Berry still not standing and getting a discussion with the doctor. He's in some pain as he took quite a bit of damage to the midsection.
Yeah, these shots are vicious by Cody Clark. And a nice show of affection in the center of the cage as we've got the replay on there. And Bryce Berry lifting the hand of Cody Clark. You see these knees landing, and they are just mean. Great amateur debut by Cody Clark. He has a record of 1-0 now. Shows that 5 months of MMA has taught him well. Great wrestling, great striking. Bryce Berry now 0-2. Perhaps maybe can work with Jim. He still fights independently, training with his friends and other independent fighters. But as he works his way, maybe he can find a gym. Got the right toughness, just maybe needs a little bit of a technique adjustment. We are just waiting for the official decision. Our next fight of the night is going to be Elvis Mackay and Greg Steen, so that's going to be coming up right after the official decision here between Berry and Clark. So it looks like the official decision is in, so we're going to go to Jaden Ents, who's in the center of the cage with the official results.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the official decision brought to you by Bill 360. The winner by referee stoppage due to verbal submission at 1 minute and 18 seconds in the second round. In the red corner, Cody Lumberjack Clark!
Cody Clark, again, 1-0 as an amateur. He wins his first fight. He's with Ryan.
Cody, I'll ask you a couple questions here, center of the cage. You said you were worried about Bryce's right hand. Seemed to tag you once or twice in the first round, but you got through it.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. They caught me. I was rocked, and I had to go to the ground. Just had to.
So now you said that the plan wasn't to go to the ground, but once you got to the ground, you dominated.
You got the best wrestling coach you can get, right? So I'm comfortable on the ground no matter what. My plan was to just let it kick him, but he caught me that one time.
So once you get him to the ground, you start dropping elbows and knees. You felt pretty comfortable up there?
Yeah, first I was looking for the submissions, but I landed a couple of those elbows and I can hear him grunting and moaning, so I just kept going for it.
Now I'm sure you got sponsors and coaches to thank.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody from Dynamic. Without them, I wouldn't be here. They're my family. They push me harder than anybody can push me. There's no one in here that can stop me because of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for your winner, Cody Clark.
To find out more about Hard Knocks Fighting and upcoming Hard Knocks events, please visit hardknocksfighting.com.
fighting out of the Power Dodge blue corner. With a record of 2-0, he weighed in at 140 pounds. Fighting out of the Winnipeg Academy of Mixed Martial Arts, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Katona! And his opponent, in the Boston Pizza red corner, it is a debut fight, weighing in at 141 pounds, fighting as an independent out of Estevan. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Ron Carrier! The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks fight is Mark Aparicio.
So Mark Aparicio in charge of the action, as he will be quite frequently throughout these 17 fights that we have on the card tonight here at Hard Knocks 21. Both fighters appear to be ready. No last-minute instructions required. Both fighters are ready. The cage door is closed, and we are underway with Hard Knocks 21 from Estevan, Saskatchewan. Carrier comes out with a couple of jabs early, maybe trying to find his range. Katona responds with the swinging right.
Yeah, Katona looks very comfortable here, and a good swing there, and now going into contact. Trying for the takedown was Ron Carrier, but ending up on his back, and now in the mount is Keith Katona.
Now you'll remember in a lot of Hard Knocks fights in Calgary, where we're based and a lot of our earlier events took place, no strikes to the head of a downed opponent. Here, that's not the case. Just no knees or elbows to the head of a downed opponent, or no knees or strikes, no knees or elbows to the head of an opponent at all, standing or on the ground. And you can see this ground and pound already taking effect as Keith Katona is putting on a clinic here in the early going of how to find a dominant position, and not having the full training maybe hurting Ron Carrier here.
Well, and it's just a question of experience, and when you're independent, you don't get a chance to train as often with your opponents, so you don't end up in the situations. It's very difficult to, by yourself, work on being on your back with somebody on top of you punching you in the face. And you look at the overhead camera here as he continues to push down with the forearm there. Now, that's not an elbow, that's more of a strike motion, so he's able to push down, and a nice right hand there by Keith Katona.
And again, Carrier in a little bit of trouble here, not much in the way of ground defense. Holding down Katona now, looks like he's grabbed his head in there, but more of a desperation move, I think, than an attempt to get an advance in his position. It really seems like Carrier's feeling some pain here. You can see the grimace on his face as Katona continues to work, as he has done for the duration here of round number one.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me here if Katona is going to try for a submission, that all of this other stuff that's going on right now is just for him trying to set up his submission. We talked about his submission game earlier on, a little bit of a wrestling cradle looking like here by Katona, but in rear naked choke, and that is it, it's over. It was an instantaneous tap.
Yeah, not a difficult decision for Carrier. He'll have to go back to the drawing board. Keith Katona, mind you, now moves to 3-0 in his amateur career, and he will continue along and continues the tradition of the WAMA boys. WAMA, a well-regarded gym here in the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship. Nothing but success for the Winnipeg Academy of Mixed Martial Arts.
Yeah, great impressive performance by Katona. I don't think that he was challenged at all in this fight. But Carrier can go back to the drawing board and perhaps find that balance that I was talking about earlier, get into a gym where he can train against guys his own size more often, and so he can get used to those situations and know what to do there. He didn't look like he was defending very actively with his legs at all. Did eventually get a half guard, but immediately was slipped off by Katona. And Katona, 21 years old, 3-0 as an amateur, so great start for him, and hopefully he can continue forward and perhaps maybe move on to be a professional soon.
And now we'll just wait the official decision.
We're going to go to Doug Denance, who's in the center of the cage.
Hard Knocks fans, a special thank you goes out to Estevan EMS, the official ambulance for the School of Hard Knocks Estevan event. for helping to keep all of our Hard Knocks fighters safe in their competition. And now, for the official decision, brought to you by Power Dodge. The winner, by tap out with rear naked choke in the blue corner, Keith Katona!
Keith Katona pushing his amateur record to 3-0. He's with Ryan.
Center of the cage here. Looks like you came in, worked your game plan, got the takedown, were able to secure the finish.
Yeah, the plan was just to take it wherever it went, and it felt good.
Now, obviously, you were able to secure the rear naked choke. Not sure if we have the replay up and running yet, but we should momentarily. When we get it, we'll get you to walk us through the finish. But in the meantime, I'm sure you got coaches and sponsors to thank.
Yeah, I'd like to thank my coaches at Lama and United Boxing, as well as, I guess I should say hi to my mom who's watching from home. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right, and I think we might have the replay queued up here, and we should be able to get to that. You can walk us through the finish of the fight here momentarily. There we go.
As you can see, I'm standing there. I'm pretty happy.
So a sense of humor and some skills. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for your winner, Keith Katona.
To find out more about Hard Knocks Fighting and upcoming Hard Knocks events, please visit hardknocksfighting.com.
Fighting out of the Power Dodge blue corner, making his debut at 164 pounds. Fighting out of Ultimate Blue Pie in Winnipeg, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Ryan Starkle! And fighting out of the Boston Pizza red corner, making his debut at 170 pounds. Fighting out of Thunder Valley Martial Arts in Thunder Bay, Ontario, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Zach Wandry. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mark Aparicio.
So Mark Aparicio back in charge in the center of the cage. All the doors are closed, the fighters are ready, and we are underway with our fourth fight of the night from the Hard Knocks 21 from Estevan, Saskatchewan. An early flurry by both fighters and a nice takedown there by Stargill.
Yeah, but a nice transfer over by Valdrin and able to grab his head, and now he's got his head all alone. Now, I'm concerned about how fast Starkell's come out, and we don't know much about his conditioning. We haven't seen him fight before, but it's known that if you come out really flying hard, and here's a possibility of a rear naked choke here by Starkell.
Now, I think, Jeremy, he's got to get his body back around the other side. If you look right now, he's kind of got more of the upper arm underneath the neck, needs to get that forearm and elbow underneath if he wants to be successful from that position.
But using an opportunity to have a good position to land some strikes to the back there. Continuing on, and again, this is a torrid pace coming out to start the fight, even though we ended up on the ground.
And now into a mount position is Starkle as Valdrin looks to have rolled over, and as a result, no choke available, but not afraid to punch from the top is the Muay Thai fighter Ryan Starkle.
Yeah, and you'll see the advantage of having these big, long legs. If he's able to get around and get an arm of Starkell, he'll be able to definitely try a submission from there. But Starkell doing a very good job landing shots, remaining busy on top.
So Starkell continuing to land strikes on top, and Valdrin continuing to try and kind of find an opening to get away from the mounted position he finds himself in. Starkle again has had this position primarily throughout the majority of round number one. There was a brief moment where Valdrin had rolled him through, but Starkel continued rolling and found himself with a choke that he had to give up, and since then has been landing strikes to the body primarily, although a couple now to the head of his opponent, Zach Valdrin, as both of these fighters look to get a win in their amateur debut.
Yeah, it's still being effective on the ground. Good defense here by Valdrin. He's not taking significant damage here. These punches there's a nice one that landed on the top of the head, and just trying to get out and try something new as Valdrin, as he ends up stuck underneath the mount of Ryan Starkel.
So again, Starkel on top of Valdrin, trying to wall walk, and does get over, but a nice transition there from Starkel to stay on top, and now he has Valdrin's back, although not, just content to now go into a side control position and drop a knee and continue to stay on top and look for an opening, trying to slide in that choke, and it looks like he might have it, Jeremy, as the tap has happened. Starkel is your winner by rear naked choke. Zach Valdrin will fall to 0-1, and Starkel tops the cage to celebrate.
Yeah, and a nice little fall there. I don't know if I want to fall from the top of the cage and land on my butt, but there was only 1 second, maybe 2 seconds left in that round, so it's unfortunate that Valdrin wasn't able to hold on to be able to force one, but good bleeding nose there, dripping fairly well, and running around the cage is Starkel, so he wins his amateur debut, and again, this is in the 170-pound class.
So Starkel with his coach there, successful in his first MMA fight, and we'll just now need to wait for the official time of the decision, although Starkel gets a little bit of a dance there in the center of the cage.
Getting some guidance from his coaches, Zach Valdrin, looking to perhaps go to the drawing board, put a little bit of size onto that large frame, and continue to go forward. Definitely not short for dancing moves is Ryan Starkel. Looks like we have the official decision in the center of the cage with Doug Denance.
And now, the official decision brought to you by XS4 Gear. At 1 second remaining of the first round, the winner with tap out by a rear naked choke in the blue corner, Ryan Starkel!
Starkel wins his amateur debut. He's with Ryan at the center of the cage.
Ryan, I'll get you here, center of the cage. First, congratulations on the win, but I need to ask you, I'll get you to look into the camera here, I need to ask you, what's going on up top?
And I want to get noticed. I'm going to do what it takes to get noticed because I'm going to the top.
So he gets noticed for the haircut, but I'm sure you'll get noticed for the tap out. 1 second left in round one.
Anything necessary, my friend, I'm going to make it happen.
I'm sure you got some sponsors and coaches to thank.
I got friends and family. I sold 3 tables here. We're all here supporting me from Winnipeg. I got people back home watching us live on TV. And don't stop now, this is only the start. Hold on. Also in my time, my coach Brian Kelly, he is the shit. The best man, he doesn't only care about me in the cage, but he cares about me outside the cage as well. He's a great man.
One more time for your winner, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Starkel.